Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today we are going to be playing with Lucas B's Albino Stompy deck list, as he calls it. Lucas is a longtime supporter of the channel, and I believe he has now donated once a month for a full 12 months, and this deck list is sort of a remade version of the first deck list that he originally donated with. So what's going on here? The general game plan is to try to play a very aggressive hate deck. So we can stop searching, we can tax spells, we can invalidate spells, or we can make them more expensive. And how can I forget vintage staple Archon of Ameria, which can both muck with lands and limit the number of spells that you can cast. So for any sort of Hatebears deck that's also trying to play Ancient Tomb, whether it's like a deck like this or a white Eldrazi deck, the biggest issue is your mana base. If you can make the mana work, your deck will probably be pretty good. And so we have 6 Soul Lands and 2 Wastelands as colorless sources, and everything else in the deck is just like going to make sure that we can actually cast our white spells. There aren't actually that many things with double white pips here, so that helps out a lot. It's when you want to start playing like a white card, like say Tomic, for example, on turn 2, that a lot of times those things get a little bit dicier. At the top end of our curve, we have some interesting things. We have Court of Grace, and we all know that the Monarch is a very, very powerful mechanic. Very much warps games when you do it. And the other thing that we have is Legion Angel. When this thing enters the battlefield, you can put one from your sideboard into your hand. So we have 2 of these in the main deck and 2 of them in the sideboard so that we can fish out an extra card. And we do have a Solitude as a free removal spell that kind of allows us to pitch some cards. Now, the one card here you might not be familiar with is Brutal Cathar. It's a 3-mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. And this has the Daybound and Nightbound stuff, which is a little different from how the day-night stuff originally worked. So it starts out on the Daybound side. If a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. And then it turns into a 3/3 first striker with ward 3. And then if a player casts 2 spells during their own turn, it transforms back into Brutal Cathar, and you get to exile another creature. So we've got some removal. We have some ability to just spiral the game out of control with Luminarch Aspirant, which apparently just wants to stay on the screen. Okay, there we go. And as far as the sideboard goes, we have some powerful options. We have Rest in Peace and Torpor Orb as haymakers for certain matchups. Yes, Torpor Orb will do some things to our own deck, shutting off Solitude and Legion Angels, but if we're playing this against something like Death and Taxes or Doomsday, it probably has a high enough impact where that doesn't matter. I do want to highlight Winds of Abandon real quick. This is a really neat removal spell. It's an exile removal spell for a creature, and then they get a basic land card. But if you overload it, it turns into a one-sided Wrath for 6 mana, which is pretty dope in a deck that can actually cast that. All right, I hope you all will enjoy this video. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to support my content. And if you're a regular, throw me a like or a comment to support my content. Those are the easiest ways to support me for free. Let's battle. Please let my opponent be playing combo and not turn 1 me. Oh, okay. All right. I am gonna have some options here as far as what I do. So I always do this. I always do this. And that'll imprint the Solitude. I always play Lotus Petal out. And now it's a question of, which one of these do I play? It becomes harder to double spell if I play Trinisphere. But I think Trinisphere is the best thing in a vacuum here. It's worse against a Daze if my opponent happens to be playing that. But if they're playing something like a Reanimator deck, they're just going to Entomb in response here. Yep. And then it's hard for them to actually cast something super relevant. All right. So now I have to play the game of remembering how to cast Chalice of the Void under Trinisphere because it's not intuitive at all. All right. Okay, I have done it. Now opponent needs land drop and something like an Exhume to get that into play. Okay, I mean, you've got your Archon. That's quite bad for me. I have a handful of exile things that I can draw. Guess I'll discard the Chrome Mox. Chrome Mox and Thalia are unfortunately of similar quality here. Like, the Thalia is only good if I answer the Archon. Yeah, so anything I play here just eats it, unfortunately. So I'm probably just dead in 3 attacks to this thing, which is brutal. So that puts me to 8. Ugh. Oh wait, hold on. This thing also just hits for another 3, doesn't it? Because discard and loses 3 life, so this really attacks for 9. Alright. Well, I got my wish. My opponent was on combo. It just didn't matter since they were on the play. Alright, what do I have for this matchup? I have a lot of graveyard hate. I have 6-ish cards that I can bring in, and Winds of Abandon is reasonable as well. Yeah, most of my cards are actually pretty good in this matchup. Probably don't want Court of Grace, it's very slow. I don't think I need Legion Angels. I don't need card advantage here. I just need to, like, keep my opponent from winning. So that gets in the first 4 sideboard cards, but I need to board at least 2 more cards, potentially 4 more cards. I'll go down at minimum 2 Aspirants. Like, Aspirant is for the matchups that grind. Don't need them here. Now it's just like Winds versus Aspirant. I'm at 21 creatures currently, but it's really more like 19 because Solitude doesn't, like, I'm probably not hard casting that. I think I'm going to take Winds on the draw, but not on the play. This has no mana sources, so that goes back. This can't do anything on turn 1, but otherwise has all the right sort of stuff. So I might just get turn 1 here, but I'm going to keep this hand. Probably pitch the Aspirant here. We'll see if my just turn 2 Rest in Peace is too slow. Alright. Okay, that's fine. And now it requires, like, a Lotus Petal to go off this turn, which can happen. Alright, Archon in the gray. No, don't do it. Yeah, okay. Well, oof, basically. I'll junk the Arbiter. I can stop another creature from coming, but I need to rip a removal spell. Otherwise I'm dead. Alright. I'll discard Chalice when this thing attacks. Yep. Ow. It hurts so much. Yep, and this was the issue with not having a turn 1 hate piece, and you're not a legendary creature. Alright. Rough. Alright, I don't have enough mana here. I'm just gonna mulligan this one, especially on the play where I can leverage my mana advantage. This hand is medium. I'm probably gonna keep it and just throw back 1 plains. It's possible keeping the plains is important if I end up using this Wasteland and locking myself under the Trinisphere. I'm kind of hoping that, like, I play Arbiter into Trinisphere into Wastelanding my opponent and just kind of, like, lock them out of the game. Like, that's my goal. Don't Ragavan me. That makes my hand... Okay, that's fine. Ragavan specifically made my hand a lot worse there. Okay. So let's maybe try to keep my opponent off of some stuff here. This can just get dazed, though, and then I'm pretty far behind. Yeah, same deal. Now I'm going to be in a really weird spot this game where I have to decide, like, whether or not this Wasteland is actually going at my opponent's card. Oh. Yeah, Wastelanding my opponent in the face of their Sylvan Library is probably not optimal for me. Another Plains. I think I want to try to invalidate my opponent's counter spells and just, like, make their cantrips less efficient. Because if they can draw cards with Sylvan Library but not really use them, then their Sylvan Library isn't giving them as much advantage as it normally does. And I can potentially follow this up with, like, a 3... Wow, that is so much damage. Holy shit. Oh, they don't have more land. That's why they got so aggressive there. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Alright, just Trinisphere Wasteland bullying. Yeah, we were about to play an Aspirant that was going to be unchecked for multiple turns, followed by Legion Angel as a draw 2. It was going to be really good. Alright, so we are playing against some sort of rug pile. I'm going to assume that there's, like, just good stuff like Ragavan and Uros in here. So what is bad? I probably want some number of Rest in Peace, because I'm assuming that, like, some combination of, like, Uro, Dragon Rage Channeler, and Murktide Regent are in this deck. Maybe not all of them, but some number of those cards are probably in this deck. Wins is fine. Jitte's okay. A lot of times on the draw versus Delver decks, I board out Trinispheres. I'll probably do that here. And then I might play this again on the play. Like, I know that Trinisphere just single-handedly won me that game, but, like, when your opponent starts on, like, a Delver, a Dragon Rage Channeler, a Ragavan, and then, like, you go, like, guess I'll play a Trinisphere, it's super awkward. So that can get me some number of Rest in Pieces, and then it's just, like, how many wins, or do I even want wins? I could also just pull Court of Grace from the deck. Like, the card's really powerful, but if my opponent's getting down creatures early, it might just be more important to stop those, and then I can win with something later on once I've stopped that. So kind of the final question here is, like, do I want Jitte or do I want Cathar Commando as an answer to a Sylvan library? There's probably, like, 2-ish of those in the 75, plus or minus 1. Without the ability to tutor for it, I'm not sure that I actually do want it. It's okay. My opening hand here is fine. The primary issue with it is that I just have, like, mono 2-drops here, so I don't have an answer to a turn 1, like Ragavan. Well, I guess I do because of Caracas. So I guess I'll just play that and bounce this Ragavan this turn. Alright, so the Ragavan will come in. I'll send it back up, and my opponent gets this, like, weird pseudo Rishadan Port type effect from their Ragavan. Like, dash is very much a thing that can happen, so, like, I can either leave this Caracas up forever, or just, like, keep bouncing the Ragavan. Oh, that is literally the perfect draw. Like, if I could have picked my draw, Ancient Tomb would have been it. Because that lets me cast this Chalice of the Void, while also holding up the Caracas. Aww. Still very happy with the draw. Now, a little thing about Caracas and Ragavan, you do want your opponent to actually get into combat and do their attack first, so they can't just, like, dash it back in, because that ends up being super relevant. Okay, so my opponent is getting a lot of their fetching in under my Leonin Arbiter, which I don't really love, but I'm hoping that I just get to resolve a Rest in Peace the next turn, and it doesn't super matter. Nice. So let's start by attempting the Rest in Peace. It occurs, and now the question is, like, do I want to play like a Hatebear into Daze? I don't think so. Like, as a Hatebear into Daze, that also requires me to drop this Caracas. I don't think I'm down for that. My opponent is just, like, not even playing the Ragavan game anymore. They might have Hardcast Force of Will. In which case, playing a Thalia first here is probably correct. That just keeps my opponent off of doing that. Okay, it occurred. I think I'll continue to just play around Ragavan here, because I'm already taxing my opponent via Thalia, whereas, like, the Archon would potentially tax myself from playing multiple spells, and that's something I can realistically do right now. My Arbiters are really weak here. My opponent probably has almost all of the actual lands out of their deck at this point. I have to worry about something random like a Hull Breacher? An Endurance? Endurance would kind of suck. Nope. Okay, so opponent will just take 4 here. I'll play a new Arbiter and get an Archon into play. My Ancient Tomb has done an... yeah, alright, my opponent's just done with me. That's fair. GG's. Alright, I hope you're enjoying the matches. If you're enjoying the matches, consider becoming a YouTube member and gaining access to some of my exclusive members-only videos, or consider checking out my podcast, the Eternal Glory Podcast, if you want some more Phil action. Alright, back to the show. So I've kept my opening hand here. I have the potential to Chalice on turn 1 here. I don't think I'm going to do that, because, like, this City of Traders hanging around both allows me to double spell and allows me to play this Legion Angel that's in my hand. And I think it's just too awkward to lose the city on 1. This is also a hand where, like, if the city was Ancient Doom, I'm not 100% sure if I would actually just, like, play the Chalice on 1. That Ancient Tomb would represent so much self-damage over the course of a game. Alright, so we're just going to go Plains Go. And then I'll figure out which of these 2-drops is going to be best in the matchup. Marsh Flats is not super common these days. Ooh, so we are playing against combo. In which case, we have a very good hand if my opponent doesn't go off on turn 1. And they might. Alright, I've lost my Chalice to that, so we'll see if my opponent has, like, both an Entomb and a Ritual, or equivalent. Okay. They have exactly enough stuff to get an Archon of Cruelty into play after making me discard. Alright, Legion Angel can go to the bin here. So essentially, I just need to rip a removal spell, or I'm dead here. I wonder if this deck should not be playing as many Rest in Pieces as it should, because it seems like I'm fine if I make it to the mid game, but like making it to that mid game is a real problem. I'm gonna just junk the Trinisphere. Like, if I answer this card, I'll probably end up winning anyway. And if I don't, I will lose. Okay, and I lost. So I'll probably sideboard the same as before. I think that was 8 cards we boarded before. I think I wanted this when I was on the draw, but not when I was on the play. I think I went Legion Angels and those out. And then I trimmed 2 Aspirants. And when I'm on the draw, if I go to that game, I'll pick up Winds of Abandon. Yes. Turn 1, Trinisphere. Turn 2, Containment Priest or Rest in Peace. Sounds pretty hot. Honestly, like, turn 2 Arbiter is actually really good, too. Yeah, basically, if I picked a card at random from my hand to play on turn 2, it would absolutely be fine. Alright, there's my Trinisphere. And my opponent will not get to do anything next turn. I think I am just going to play Arbiter. Hello, Magic Online. Okay, there we go. I think I'm just going to play the Arbiter here. Because it makes it harder for my opponent to naturally just get to 3 mana for the fetch land here. Yeah. Okay. So I'll bash in for my 2, and then I'll flash in Containment Priest at the end of my opponent's turn. What a beautiful cat boy. I do love him so. Oh, nice, yeah. There's a Rest in Peace, and here's a Chalice of the Void. Okay, my opponent has conceded, understandably so. So then on the draw, I'll cut the 2 Aspirants for 2 Winds of Abandon. And I really need to, like, have a Solitude in my opener hand or have one of these acceleration cards. I have so many impactful turn 2 plays, but I get turn 1 to a lot of... Oh my god, what a hand. Yes. A discard spell unfortunately picks this hand apart a little bit. But I can answer an Archon of Cruelty that gets into play. So that's pretty cool. Alright. We'll see how bad this is. Okay, it is a Grizzledad. So that thing happens. And we'll see how much more my opponent can do. Like, I can Solitude this sucker at any time. But I'm trying not to, because I just have Karakas in my hand to bounce this. Okay. That's an Archon. Okay, so this is not actually that bad, right? So I'll just, like, discard the Chrome Mox here. I think I discard the Chrome Mox here. And then I'll Archon this, or I'll Solitude this away, and then bounce Grizzlebrand. No, please don't do more. This is enough. Alright, Thought Sees me. Okay, then I have to pull the trigger here. Alright. Oh, hold on. Was it Exhume? Okay, so the second time around, I had a better line than what I did. So I could have evoked Solitude on Grizzlebrand, exiled it. Exhume brings back my Solitude. So I could have had to, like, not tap this Karakas on my next turn. Yeah, small misplay on my end. Okay. Now, my opponent still has a billion cards. Let's be clear about that. Like, it's very possible that the Archon of Cruelty just comes back this turn. And all I did is for naught. Bounce you. What's your follow-up? Alright, they have an animate dead. That's very bad for me. I need to rip an answer to this. Guess I discard a Plains, because I'll go Plains Rest in Peace on my turn. I think that's very strange unmask timing, though, if I'm being honest. Like, I think you can do that prior to casting the Animate Dead to play around, like, surgical extractions and such. Say Livy. So I go to 6 here. I'm dead next turn. Alright. Yeah, I think we need some faster Graveyard Hate versus Reanimator here. The Rest in Pieces are not cutting it in this matchup. They're not bridging to all of my turn 2 threats that, or not turn 2 threats, turn 2 Hatebears that are exceptionally good here. Alright, this does not have enough mana, so this one just absolutely has to be a mulligan. Yeah, I mean, this is a keep. The Chrome Mox gets pitched here. I have a turn 1 Chalice. This is probably a slightly below average hand, but not, like, to the point of, like, I'm sad about it or anything. So there's a world where I'm not supposed to play this Chalice. I just play Chalice on 2 so that I can play Legion Angel on 3. I don't know that I'm going to wait, though. Like, waiting a turn plays the Chalice around days, but every turn that I wait makes the Chalice worse because I want to try to, like, stick this before my opponent has a chance to fire off a bunch of cantrips. Okay. It also may not matter if my opponent is just playing a Prismatic Ending deck. They just answer Chalice pretty easily. Alright, how are we getting countered? Not getting countered. So Prismatic Ending now becomes the next test. Most likely thing my opponent is playing is some sort of, like, Bant mid-rangey control deck, but, you know, there's other options. Like, there's Doomsday lists that look kind of like this. Let's just go Plains Pass, and then I'll hope to resolve a Legion Angel, and then a Legion Angel, and then a Legion Angel. Ooh, we are seeing movement from my opponent. Okay. Alright, no Ice Fang or anything. So something like a Teferi could... Oh, nope. Alright, cool. I mean, I've got one thing I can do. I've kind of flooded here. I really need this to resolve, but I can't really do too much about it. I kind of have to hope that my opponent is stuck with a bunch of dead cards. Okay, and oh. Oh. I mean, the good news is I still have a 4/3 flyer. The bad news is I do not have 2 more of those. Little bit of sadness. Ooh, okay. So there's probably a couple of Life from the Loam type cards in there. You don't have to worry about Ice Fang Coatl. I could trade with an Endurance. Timing on this one's weird. I'm gonna go ahead and do it pre-combat. Some situations where, like, my opponent responds to this and then, like, can't properly, like, play, like, an Endurance in combat or something, yeah. And then this makes my attack just a little bit safer. Opponent drops to 14. I essentially just need to hit some gas here. I have a decent number of lands and mana sources and, like, lock pieces that aren't going to be great here. Yeah. You're a little late, bud. Just a little late. Okay, so there's the fetch so that my opponent doesn't get locked out from fetching. And I'm guessing this resolves now. It's not really that much of a threat. I think I just sit back on my Legion Angel for a little while. Oh boy. My opponent is starting to pull ahead here, right? Like, they have the board stalled. Well, that's awkward. How do I do this? Do I attack in with both and then try to play Court of Grace on the empty board, hope they don't have Endurance? I think that's my plan. Send it. Like, I know they don't have Ice Fang Coatl because they're not playing Snow-Covered Basics. Alright. Do I play this land? I don't think I'm going to play that land. Alright. Does it work? Oh, no! No! Stop! The dress down was bad enough. Yeah, this is the hard cast Force of Will. Fuck. My opponent's cards have lined up just very well versus mine. Alright. We're just gonna be chilling for a little while. I am terrified of my opponent drawing something like an Uro and just starting to pull ahead. Like, I know the Uro can't kill me because I have Caracas, but, like, they have Caracas too. The Uro just turns into this slow card draw machine. Mystic Sanctuary for what? For a Force of Will. I mean, it makes sense. So, my next thing just gets countered. JK, this doesn't get countered. This card is not good in this situation. But, I mean, I'll make them remember their Caracas. Like, this isn't worth nothing, you know? They remembered. Okay, what do you have? Fairy? The fairy. So this bounces the chalice, and then whatever dead card has been sitting in my opponent's hand, they can have an opportunity to cast it. Yup. So I know my opponent has Force of Will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can make Force of Will cost 6. So I will probably go ahead and do so. Start with Thalia. Then I think I play this chalice on 1. Okay, it has resolved. Now, I think I am just going to go ahead and blow this Lotus. No, I don't need to leave that Caracas up. Like, my opponent's just going to bounce my Thalia. Okay, they let it resolve. And my Thalia gets bounced. Alright. My situation does not feel good. The prismatic ending on maybe the Chalice? Yeah, on the Chalice. Now it becomes a question of, like, is my opponent going to find an Endurance or another thing that... Oh, fuck, it's a Jace. Oh, really? Okay. Thought, like, my opponent was just going to bounce this and get a huge tempo advantage. I'm going to cast my Thalia. I'm going to attempt to kill Teferi. It probably doesn't work. Yep, it does not work. Now I'm just, like, sitting here very awkwardly with nothing going on. I probably concede after a couple turns of this. Like, the tide has tipped very clearly in favor of my opponent. I need to draw, like, the other Court of Grace or the other Legion Angel, or I don't think I have a realistic way of staying in this game. Oh no, they've got something else. Okay, they're fetching. Oh, please don't just be a giant shark typhoon, because that just kills me so quickly. Okay, it is Endurance. Alright, I think with, like, a real blocker and 2 active and useful planeswalkers, I can scoop that up there. Actually not gonna have a lot for this matchup. I don't have more, like, bangers in my sideboard. The Legion Angels kind of have to stay there so that I have, like, the ability to tutor them up. I could I could change it to a 3-1 split. I'm not sure if that's actually better. Yeah, like, I can board in some number of Rest in Peace to deal with things like Uro and Loam that I expect are in the deck. Like, Brutal Cathar is probably medium here. Solitude is probably medium here. Especially when I can't tutor for it. I'll play 2 Rest in Peace. Not sure if I'm supposed to play more than that. But these Bant decks with Prismatic Ending just dance around Chalice of the Void so well that, like, I probably can't board those out because they do provide some of the free wins that my deck, like, very much needs to get, but Chalice is not impressive here. And if I had better sideboard options, I would be looking for ways to board Chalice out. I'm going to deal just absolutely so much damage to myself with this Ancient Tomb. I don't think I care, because my opponent is, like, not going to be good at pressuring my life total. But once my opponent stabilizes, if they stabilize, I will die very quickly. Like, I'm probably going to take 10 damage from this Ancient Tomb if I were to just kind of ballpark guess. And I think it does have to be the Ancient Tomb and not the City of Traders here, because there's a lot of worlds where I end up wastelanding my opponent's first land. Okay, it's stuck. I'm not afraid of anything immediately. Let's just try to make life hard for my opponent here. Okay, there's a Force of Will. They presumably had that for the Chalice and just, like, didn't use it, so that's not great for me. That means I can just pay 2 mana and Prismatic Ending it out of play here. And I'll be left with an awful lot of nothing. Oh, it's a... Oh god, Life from the Loam is so... Actually... Maybe it's not so frustrating. That was an oddly good draw. I can just, like, Wasteland, blow up Tropical Island, and that keeps them from, like, dredging the life from the loam to return the other land if they get their first mana source. This does mean that if I leave them with the Tundra, oh my god, what a draw. They can potentially just Swords of Plowshares, the Leonin Arbiter, and then kind of get back into things. But I think this is the thing that potentially takes my opponent off of the mana the hardest. If this resolves, I probably just win the game. It's going to be a disgusting amount of card advantage. I don't really need a Chrome Mox, but, you know, that's a card that I'm not drawing next turn, right? Okay. So now my opponent can theoretically start dredging Life from the Loam to make other land drops. So that soft lock that I have on the game is going to slowly fall apart. Don't think I need to make this land drop this turn. I think I'll just do this. Put the counter on the cat. And crash in for 3. I don't have to worry about endurance yet because my opponent can't fetch because of this. Okay, what is this at 2 mana? Oh, okay, they're straight up just going to pay to fetch. That's fine. Okay, sure. All right, I have a lot of pressure on board. My opponent's draw step stop scares me every time. 4, 7, 8, 9 damage next turn. Lethal the following turn. Automatic ending? Oh, Uro. Yeah, Uro's fine. Like, Uro does not stick on the board. And, like, Uro is a little hard to just, like, get next turn anyway, just because of, like, the Leonin Arbiter. Alright, there's land. There's a Thalia. I'm just going to put the counter on the Aspirant itself. And I'll crash in. I don't really think my opponent's going to have a Plague Engineer, but it's something that it's pretty free for me to just play around here. This is the sort of situation where Court of Grace is very good. Like, when it resolves and the board is empty, it does amazing things. It's a little bad sometimes when you're behind. All right, on the draw, do I want more copies of Rest in Peace? I guess I technically could also consider Containment Priest. Or no, I guess, well, not really. Like, I can consider it in that, like, it's a 2/2 flash body. Kind of the extent to which I can consider it. Reporting Cathar Commando as a 3/1. Still eats it to endurance. I could keep the Solitudes on the draw to make my Arbiters and Thalias better. I also technically could go down some mana sources, but I really need to make it to 3 mana every single game. And 4 mana allows me to double spell most of the time. I think I'm gonna trim but not cut Chalice. Like, I don't mind having one, but I don't think I need it in my opening hand. Chalice has just lost so much stock in Legacy over the last couple of years. This hand's okay. It has the 3 mana problem, though. Like, I have 2 draw steps to get my next land drop. Well, I guess technically 3. I'm on the draw. Alright, my opponent mulliganed once. So they start down a card, which is nice for me. I kind of like to draw a Chrome Mox. That would be one of the things that would really help improve this hand. I think if I just play 1 card a turn, my opponent is going to pull ahead. Okay, my opponent gets some acceleration of their own here. That's kind of bad. That means that something like a Teferi can come down this turn. My opponent also just, like, uses 2 fetch lands and makes this Arbiter significantly worse. Not great for the home team here. Yeah, so now this can just sit and play and then bounce whatever Hatebear I deploy. That's not really good for me. Oddly, I think the correct line this turn is to just play the Rest in Peace and nuke these cards from the graveyard. This is one of the things that I can do that just doesn't, like, immediately allow the Teferi to get value. And then I can try to wasteland one of my opponent's lands and, like, go from there. Okay, yeah, so opponent is immediately trying to get some things out of the graveyard here. I wish I had something with 3 power. Drawing an Aspirant here is pretty good. Ooh. That represents multiple creatures in one turn cycle. That I like. Let's cast this. Put a Rest in Peace under it. I'll start out by playing a Thalia. I'll follow it up with Arbiter. And kind of the hope here is that my opponent does not have like an Endurance as one of their remaining cards. And then I can potentially just kill this Teferi next turn. Things are going to be pretty close here. Let's set a stop on my draw step. Never mind, I guess I'm not. Okay. So I think the way to do this... Oh, this costs 4 right now. That's super inconvenient. Okay, so I guess I can't do that way. I'm going to cast this pre-combat Archon. Oh, nice. I have gotten this land tapped. That is ultimately one of the things that I wanted to do. So by tapping that, that means that I can't get blown out by an Endurance mid-combat. That is fantastic for me. Okay. You can play another spell while this is still on the stack, or you can fetch. Which one are you doing? Okay, it's a Swords on Thalia. That occurs. Now, I think I will go ahead and just Wasteland that Tropical Island now. I want to get this Rest in Peace down before my opponent can cast a Life from the Loam, because that's something that is just, like, very disastrous for me right now. Like, I have my opponent choked and slowed down, but I need to just, like, put a final bullet in this. And Life from the Loam would undo just so much of the work that I've done here. Black. Oh, is this just a prismatic ending on the Archon? Okay, it is. So now I'm going to be left with this choice of, like, do I play around the Life from the Loam that I know is very detrimental to me, or do I get rid of the Archon when my opponent valued getting rid of that very highly? And I think the answer is I need to dump this back into play. But Life from the Loam, still just very good here. Okay. That was a tapped Caracas. What is white? What is white? Alright, I think I'm going to make my attack now. Let's send in with these and see what my opponent does. Nothing? Nothing. Okay. Oh, were they thinking about just fetching via Arbiter? They might have been doing that. I think it's reasonable to play all 3 of these cards here for different reasons. I've dodged Life from the Loam so far. I don't think they have it in hand currently. I'm just gonna Trinisphere. Okay, it does seem like that's what they were paying white for. Alright, I do now have to just, like, be aware that Endurance is a thing. I don't know to what extent I'll actually be able to play around it. What? Oh my god. Alright. I really want this Rest in Peace in play. And then I keep finding reasons not to cast it, which is unfortunate. I think my opponent is currently ahead, by the way. Like, I know scoreboard, like, I have more life than they do, but my position feels quite bad. Oh, God. Okay. I will absolutely discard a card, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this all is just not the best for me. I now have to play this sub-game of trying to kill this Kaya when this Kaya can just, like, blink itself and reset its loyalty. Is not a game that I am immediately winning. I need a Haymaker of my own. Alright, what do you have for me? Oof. That means that I literally can't pressure the Planeswalker anymore. And that, like, they have something that can trade with my Arbiter. This is very bad for me. Alright, so my opponent is going to blink out my things so that they can just fetch, ignoring its effect. That's reasonable. This costs them 2 life to do that. Hello, Caracas. How are you today? I'm doing fine. So, like, this card has resolved, but it's just going immediately back to my hand. I'm not in any... Oh, it's not. Okay, sure. I mean, my Thalia survives for half a turn cycle. That's worth something. I'll take my cat back. Oh, my opponent is just Continuously blinking out that cat. I'm sort of surprised. I thought, like, I'm not crazy, right? You can just reset the loyalty on this. Yeah. You just zero this, lose 2 life, then you have a Kaya at 5 loyalty again. What is this? Okay. So they're going to Caracas their Uro back to hand just repeatedly as a card draw thing. So my rest in peace is not actually doing a ton. If I win this game, I'm going to win this game via timeout, not by actually killing my opponent. Yep, so there's the bounce. Yeah, I have just double the clock that my opponent has. I'm putting them in weird situations that they're not. Oh, wow, they're just letting the Uro go instead of just keeping it around forever. Maybe they found another, in which case, like, that makes sense. So by not bouncing this Thalia, I do get to actually make a profitable attack this turn. My opponent either loses the Baleful Strix or the Kaya. I think means they lose the Baleful Strix. Okay. I'm not going to play out this Rest in Peace. I'm just going to hold this in my hand. Like, I know my opponent has some discard effects in their deck, and I want cards in my hand that I can discard that I don't care about, so that I can potentially play around keeping an important card in my hand while playing around some of this stuff. Okay, no shuffle with the Ponder. Okay. So, it's still worth 2 points of damage every turn. How many more lands does my opponent have, by the way? It must be getting low adjacent. Whatever this is, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Thank you, deck. Very cool. So, like, now my opponent has something that, like, can potentially just clock me in 5-ish attacks and make it so that they don't just time out. Opponent's mana base is definitely a little greedy, but it's working for them here. So they're just going to bounce this Uro again, draw a bunch of cards, gain a bunch of life. Nope, not bouncing it. Okay. I'm just so surprised that they keep going for that creature rather than resetting the loyalty on Kaya. Like, they very clearly have, like, the game under control. Existence is pain. Okay. Now what? Oh, sure. That boarded in purely as a flash 2/2. Okay. Why are you hemorrhaging this life? Like, you have a Caracas there that you can use. I don't need to play that. Honestly, the answer probably is that my opponent is not. Well, okay, I guess with the Containment Priest, like, the Kaya becomes better. The Kaya activation becomes better. But I don't know. I just wanted to reset that Kaya loyalty. This is just too slow. Like, I can draw exactly Solitude to not be dead. Oh, that's not true, actually, is it? Because I have my own Trinisphere. Like, I can draw Solitude, and then I'll kill myself in order to cast it. That would be poetic. Do I draw it? Nope. Alright. Life is cruel. GG's. Okay. My opening hand is super awkward, right? My opponent has revealed Yorion. If this is Death and Taxes, this, like, Chalice of the Void based hand sucks. If this isn't Death and Taxes, this hand could be reasonable versus a blue deck. It's just a question of, like, do I want to play the odds and just mulligan because this is probably Death and Taxes, or do I want to hope that I can steal a win if this is not Death and Taxes? How well equipped am I to beat Death and Taxes in the first place? The answer is probably not, right? So, like, Aspirants are good, Brutal Cathars are good, these cards are good, most of the rest of my deck is bad versus D&T. I'm going to keep this under the rationale that we probably just don't beat Death and Taxes anyway. Sequencing will be Chalice on turn 1 off basic planes, and then Arbiter on turn 2. Please don't play a planes. Okay, not technically a planes. So there's hope for me here. I think I'll just do this and play the Arbiter. Like, there's some world where I play around a Daze off Windswept Heath, but the Daze Yorion deck is not super common. Okay. Do I just follow this up with, like, a Chalice on 2 next? I'm just going to lose something to Prismatic Ending here. Please be the Chalice. Nice. I can just replay that. That's fine. The rest of my hand very much is not fine, though. Like, I have a absolute fistful of garbage here. Okay. I have 2 soft hate pieces in play, but I have 0 gas remaining. Like, every prism... Oh, God, that's so good. Also so good, though. Please resolve. Nice. So yes, and I get to fish a Legion Angel out of my sideboard. So now that I drew a real threat, my opponent can't just go absolutely ham with their Sylvan Library to just, like, dig deeper and get out of the situation that they're in. Okay, yeah, there's the concession. Okay, I think I'm gonna find myself in another one of those situations where I don't really have cards to board in. Like, I'll board in some number of Rest in Peace again, but just don't feel like my sideboard is good. Like, the Rest in Pieces were too slow versus Reanimator. They're fine in some of these other matchups, but I probably don't want to have 4 of those. And I just don't have any bangers to bring in versus Control, since some of my sideboard slot is eaten up by the Legion Angels. Okay, what don't I want? Probably Junk Solitude for 2 Rest in Peace. I haven't seen very much of my opponent's deck. There's probably, like, Ice Fangs, what is it, Abundant Growth, sorts of cards that they can blink with Yorion. Probably the usual, like, suspects of, like, Uro and whatnot. This opponent might have fewer 1-drops than my previous opponent did. I think I'm going to start with boarding 2 Rest in Peace. It's a card that I'm fine drawing, but it might be a little less necessary against this opponent than my previous opponent. I'm going to keep this hand. I'll have a real choice as to whether I play, like, Thalia or Chalice on turn 1. Playing Thalia on turn 1 requires me pitching the Aspirant to Chrome Mox, which I'm not 100% sure that I actually just want to do. So let's fire off this Chalice of the Void and see how it goes. It has resolved. That doesn't necessarily mean a ton. Okay, sure. So that's potentially indicative of a wasteland. I think at this point it's more important for me to, like, try to stay ahead on tempo here than it is for me to just have the better finisher. So I'm going to try to curve Thalia into Archon here and just make it more awkward for my opponent to answer these permanents. Okay. You have a Prismatic Ending, maybe? Sure. Basics are good. Seems like Prismatic Ending. What? Oh, okay. So my opponent casts Prismatic Ending for X equals 0, paying the Thalia tax, meaning that its CMC is still 1. Yeah. That's rough. So now I get to resolve this Archon 100% of the time. I get to bash in with this Thalia. My opponent essentially, like, time walked themselves. That was a pretty critical mistake. Like, now, like, their lands enter play tapped. I'm really far ahead. I don't have any more gas, so, like, if they can weather the storm for a few turns and get out from under this, like, they'll win. But this is a pretty hateful board. We'll see what my opponent can do. I can't answer that right now, but my opponent also does not have 2 green right now. JK. There's the second one. Alright. So I'll bash in for 4. Puts my opponent to 11. I'll play another Archon. Now, my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4. Misty Rainforest will be 5. If they have a basic forest, they just have Uro this turn. Yep. Not great for me. So now my opponent gains 3 life a turn, and I can only deal 4 a turn. I guess 6 a turn if Uro attacks. I think my opponent wins this one now pretty handily, though. Yeah. Like, I've slowed them down, but... Unless... Yeah, I think I just forced them to attack here. I think cards are not necessarily the issue here. Do I play Court of Grace? Or sorry, do I play City of Traders? I think I'm fine playing it. Rough. That was my ticket back in this game. I don't have much time to answer this Uro. Like, I have a decent amount of power in play, but, like, with my opponent drawing more cards, like, even if some of them are dead, all it's gonna take is one endurance to, like, put me to the point where I can't win this game. I'll take the hit. I don't think I can afford... Okay, that's Yorion going to hand. Alright, yeah, I'm dead. Like, I'll crash in and just absolutely concede. Okay. I mean, my opponent made a super critical error, and it did not matter. That would have been real good, but, like, the game was over at this point, unfortunately. Like, Endurance takes one of these out, Uro attacks me to 6, like, I draw this Legion Angel, I play 2 Legion Angels, and my opponent still has the better board afterwards. Ugh. Alright, so now for this game, I will board in the other 2 copies of Rest in Peace. I guess I'm junking Chalices like I did before. It doesn't feel great, but my opponents seem to be playing around it. Like, am I scared enough of Endurance that I just, like, also keep Solitude in? Like, is Solitude better than Brutal Cathar because I can just pitch cast it? That might be the case. What about Brutal Cathar versus Chalice, if I'm, like, going to start boarding these out? Sure. Absolute keep. I think I pitched the Thalia here. I think my plan is Arbiter into Arbiter. Actually, there's an argument for the Rest in Peace. Yeah, actually. Let's do that. Like, the Rest in Peace is very good, but I never want to draw a second one in the game. So, if I do this, my second, whatchamacallit, my second Rest in Peace will be live. Although, I guess this is a legendary creature, so, like, that argument works in a different direction as well. Nice. I look like a genius sometimes when I play this game. Like, there's other times where I fall on my face and I do something really stupid, but sometimes the things I say just happen. Alright, opponent goes to 18. I will play my second cat. Meow. Play a fetch land. Yes! Fantastic. I have gotten the full-on "that's rude" from the opponent. I'm just getting started. So here's the Rest in Peace to shut off the graveyard. And, here's my Thalia. I expect this is now game over. Like, it cost my opponent 4 to fetch. Like, alright. Good stuff. It's not just immediately lethal. Like, they get a turn or 2 to draw, but, like, even a Prismatic Ending or something doesn't really save them from this situation. Ah, nice, Eternosphere. Just absolute insult to injury. Okay, so, like, we got a God draw on this last round here, and everything worked out okay. The opponent goes to 2 from that, and then I just, like, fucking drop a Trinisphere on their Dreams. Okay, so we end up with a 2-3 in this league. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Main deck was kind of whatever. How do I say this? I don't think the deck list itself is bad, but I think Chalice of the Void is not where you want to be in Legacy right now. So, like, as we saw repeatedly, against these decks that are just playing Prismatic Ending, Chalice does not lock them out of the game like they used to. Like, they can still just use Prismatic Endings and Teferis and stuff to get Chalices out of play. So Chalice as a strategy is becoming something in Legacy that is just, like, harder and harder to make successful. I don't think I ever drew a Brutal Cathar in the entire league. So I can't really say anything about this card. It's a little hard to evaluate on the surface. It's probably reasonable. As far as the sideboard goes, like, that's primarily what I want to talk about. I don't think this sideboard works. I think you need some amount of, like, Surgical Extractions or Mindbreak Traps or something for really fast combo to help bridge you to turn 2. Deafening Silence could be another option. Like, it's not necessarily, like, where you want to be because you're also this Chalice deck, but it just gives you more things that you can play on turn 1 to get to turn 2, where, like, the Arbiters and the Thalias and a lot of times your Trinispheres and Chalices come online. I also want something in the sideboard to help me grind versus these Bant decks. Like, the Rest in Pieces are nice, but especially if we take out some number of the rest in pieces from the sideboard, like there's got to be something else that's coming in for the ban matchup. So I would maybe be looking at maybe adjusting these 5 cards, or like maybe giving up on like Torpor Orb. Like maybe you don't just have like the room to just play that dedicated hate card. I think the Death and Taxes matchup is just going to be like really, really hard regardless. I think even if you do have a Torpor Orb, they just have enough bodies and some things that ignore your creatures that like they might just overpower you anyway. Like a piece of equipment, for example, will just beat down this deck pretty hard. Okay, I think those are my thoughts. So overall, kind of medium on the deck list. More so because of how hard it is to play a Chalice deck right now than the fact that like this idea is bad. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, click the like button. That's one of the easiest ways to support me for free. If you're not subscribed yet, consider subscribing for sweet magic content all the time. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!